Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Late Night Learning. I'm your host, Dr. Anthony Palumba. Now today we're going to be wrapping up our conversation on perception and video gameplay. Let's get started. So if we think about our last conversation, we really delved into senses. We talked about video gameplay and how our senses might be implicated there. Thinking about touch and taste and smell and all of these elements that might be involved in video gameplay. Now, I'll readily admit that we're not at the point in which odor and tasting are involved in video gameplay, but the way that technology has advanced over the course of the last decade, I do suspect one day we will be able to smell the castle in which the dragon is in that we will have to face someday soon. And so interpretation is kind of the second phase of thinking about how we interpret the information around us. So if we think about gestalts. So if we think about Mario, we think about Zelda, and then Donkey Kong, and then Nintendo Wii, and N64. And then we think about PlayStation, that's an interruption, right? Because PlayStation is not related to any of those phrases. So in video gameplay, there has to be a series of information pieces that are correlated with each other, that fall in line with each other. We all have perceptions about what a forest should look like, what Nintendo looks like, what a Lamborghini should drive like, even if we haven't been in one. And so we think about these elements all the time as we're going through video gameplay. We also have this notion of the closure principle. We seek closure and ends to what we are engaged with. Additionally, we also have the principle of similarity. We may gravitate toward things that are similar to our own gestalts. We also may start gathering things that are similar and placing them together. So video game players are inherently inclined to organize information and construe information in sets and in groups. Let's keep going. If we think about hyperreality and positioning, another element of perception is heightening what's around us. Are you a rock star? Are you a superstar? NBA 2K15 has Your Time Has Come. With Xbox One, it's positioned itself as a lifestyle brand. That we can use the Xbox One to watch movies, to do more than just video gameplay. For NBA 2K15, your time has come. You've been anointed. You are now being asked to rise to the occasion and defeat LeBron James. It's important for these video games to also position how they want to be perceived by you. Your time has come. That's a challenge. NBA 2K15, released a few years ago, was offering a challenge up to its consumers. We're a challenge. For the Xbox One, when it was marketing itself as an entertainment console, it was really pushing this lifestyle. You can switch from TV to movies to video games for all you technophiles out there. Nah, we're better than just a video game console. We're everything. We're everything. Price leadership and attributes are also figured into here. Video game consoles, particularly Microsoft and Sony, are usually priced neck and neck. Why? Because they're in fierce competition with each other. They're in fierce competition with each other, and so price leadership is factored in here. Additionally, most video games for video game consoles are priced at $60. In fact, nearly all of them are priced at $60. Why? Because they have all agreed to not go into price competition with each other. Now, of course, there are discounts and sales and things like that, but for every new debuting video game, on a Nintendo console, on a Microsoft console, on a PlayStation, Sony PlayStation console, the price is usually $60. This is done to ensure that they are not competing over price. It's kind of an agreement. And so when we think about these consoles and games, it's a matter of how we position how people will use it, how people will engage it. Nintendo Wii is not made for a 100-hour session. Not the point. Nintendo Wii is advertised for occasions. It's advertised for occasions. That anybody can kind of pick it up. That this is really for parties and fun times and just something else to do with friends rather than say, oh, hey, come over, let's go watch a movie. Product class and quality are also key here. When we think about a Nintendo console, do we think it's sophisticated? Is it sexy? Is it conservative? Is it liberal? Well, it's probably whimsical. The controllers are easy to pick up. Probably less competition is involved. If any competition is involved, it's usually friendly. The quality is pretty good on Nintendo. It's cartoonish, it's whimsical, it's funny, it's light, it's juvenile, it's youthful. It's not really meant to be taken seriously. If we think about the Xbox One, though, that's a lifestyle brand. A lifestyle brand is a brand that we use in our lives, that we use for multiple things, that we use in the course of a daily routine. So we can see that video game consoles position themselves not only for people to purchase, not only for people to play certain video games on, but to enjoy in different ways. I'm educating my audience when you use a Nintendo Wii, when you use a Microsoft Xbox One. Because I want you to perceive the Xbox One as sophisticated. And I don't want you to be intimidated by the Nintendo Wii. We would like to play. That was the tagline for the original Nintendo Wii. That you could play with others. It's for occasions. Let's keep going. Flow. I apologize for the text on this screen. It has been shortened, however, and so I'm going to go through this carefully, but this is meant to help you get a sense of what I mean by flow theory. I mention flow theory because flow theory gets into how video game players achieve and maintain their investment during video game play. It's why your cousin can't get away from Fortnite. It's why your father or your uncle was late to Thanksgiving dinner because he was swept up in Madden. Maybe why your cousin missed picking you up because he was in an NBA Finals game against LeBron James. And so flow theory, and this is a theory, states that video game players connect to video gameplay in order to realize intrinsic well-being. What we feel inside, how well we feel. It's important to consider the level of immersion they must realize. This is best explicated by flow theory, which was first theorized by Dr. C. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. He studied artists, surgeons, and others that were involved in intense activities. What he realized was that a particular fixation or intense focus upon an activity was found to be positive and even desirable. And many of these people felt a sense of purpose and enjoyment that they drew from these experiences. Flow is based on play, which involves performing actions to match or exceed requirements within an environment. If there are few requirements and the consumer has numerous abilities, then boredom may strike. Because if all I'm hitting on a D-pad is left and right, from just hitting A and B, it's not really doing a lot for me. I'm just jumping and punching. doesn't really do much. However, if there are too many requirements and the consumer has few abilities, this may create anxiety or panic with a consumer. Oh my God, here come the zombies. I don't know how to kill all of them. I don't have the hand-eye coordination. I don't have the dexterity. I don't have the focused hands to do this procedure. Flow can be interpreted as a state of pure cognitive focus and immersion, in which other ancillary and external factors don't pique or distract the video game player from his or her gameplay. In order to reach a state of flow, a consumer must experience immersion and presence. And so you must be able to make decisions, to make these decisions on your own, and to be able to share them with other people. This is known as self-determination theory as well. When we hit a state of flow, there has to be a balance of tasks. When we hit a state of flow, there has to be a balance of challenges. Too few, we become bored. Too much, there's too much anxiety. You want to hit a careful ratio based on the goal and objectives stated in video gameplay. Immersion is feeling as though you're in the video game. You're in the world. Presence is a step further, that you're actually engaging in the environment, that you literally feel present within the video game. So first, we may be transported. We may be immersed into the video game world. We're playing it, but then presence is really feeling like you're in it. And this helps with having that first-person narrative that we were talking about in an earlier class, right? The idea that we may not see our character, we see everything that's going on through our own lens. And this is exciting sometimes. Sometimes we see this. Sometimes we see this in movies or in TV shows where we don't see the actor. We kind of see things from his or her perspective. And it's more immersive. It's more visceral. It resonates with us way, way more. In video game play, this decision, whether or not to have a first-party or third-party outlook, influences the amount of immersion that may be experienced by a video game player. Let's keep going. Information search. This is also related to perception. We are constantly looking for information. When you look for your Uber driver, when you look for your Lyft, when you look for your university, your dorm, your car, we are in an instance of information search. This is not unfounded in video gameplay. We think about playing a video game, and if I'm playing Madden and I'm the New York Giants against the Dallas Cowboys, I am looking for an open wide receiver to throw the ball to as Daniel Jones, the quarterback. I am looking for the open gap so that I can run through it like Saquon Barkley. I am constantly in a state of information search. This is pivotal to video game play. If you're not searching for information, you're not moving the story along, and everything becomes inert. So information search is one of the underpinnings of video gameplay. What situations or contexts may lead consumers to not want to obtain information about video game consoles? Information searches are needed to help consumers reconcile uncertainty in their surroundings, how integral the product category is to themselves, and how averse they are to risk. Information searches reduce risk. Information searches cut down search time. If I know that LeBron James on my team in NBA 2K is a surefire shot, I'm going to pass the ball to him with 10 seconds left. Chances are, because I've already made up my mind, he's going to get the ball quicker because I'm not even going to think about it. It's the last play of the game. It's obvious he's getting the ball. It gives me more time as LeBron James catching the ball to decide if I want to dunk, layup, shoot a three to win the game. Additionally, consumers dislike uncertainty, but they may delay obtaining information if they believe the information will interfere with future pleasure or plans. So information search is a really, really interesting area of consumer behavior research to look at. Sometimes we have too much research, sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes we might say to ourselves, it's too much. If I listen anymore, if I take on any more, it's going to turn into kind of a nightmare, kind of a cluster, if you will. And so it really makes sense to think about how much information consumers need as well. If you inundate people with information, they don't have time to process it. And so sometimes we have to scale back. I've had to scale back lectures in the past because I've given my students too much information. If you don't have time to process what's going on, it creates frustration. It creates anxiety. The same principles apply to our daily lives. Too little information, we're bored. Too much information, we may feel anxiety or stressed out. Let's keep going. Evaluate alternatives and product choices. And so sometimes when we're trying to make a decision in purchasing a video game console, this dials back to perception. We have to get through all of the different kinds of video games, all of the different kinds of TV shows we can watch on a console, all of the different kinds of movies we can watch on a video game console, and even purchasing a console. We have to get through all of these things. So we first may have an evaluation set, all of the possible options we have, and then consideration set hopefully drops things down to a set we'll actually consider. We also have knowledge structures in which we have previous perceptions about something, and we've made a judgment, and they are stored within our own memories. We have category exemplars as a result. We have certain expectations with a comedy. We have certain expectations with an action video game, or a violent video game, or a sports video game. So positioning a particular video game product may include extending the use of a product, the location in a store relative to other products, right? Where products are located should fit into consumers' mindsets. So where are your products located? Nintendo and a lot of other video game consoles have fallen suit. Many of them may be found in the technology departments in Target, in Walmart. They used to be in the children's toy aisle. But as video game players have grown older in age, the average age being 33 years old, and those gamers play about 5 to 8 hours a week, video game consoles also have to grow up. How might this impact where video game consoles should be sold in a retail store? Again, it comes down to how you want people to perceive your product. And we've seen this in Hollywood, haven't we? Orange is the New Black was nominated as Best Comedy and as Best Drama. Where does it belong? Fortnite. Is it a RPG? Is it an action video game? Is it a war-based video game? How would you categorize it? Is it a MMORPG game? MMORPG game, excuse me. Where do we place it? And so it's important to consider these elements as we're talking about video gameplay. The way that we categorize something also has an influence on consumer expectations. If you're going to tell me that a certain video game is a horror video game, well, there better be blood, there better be stabbing, there better be screaming, there better be violence. Otherwise, it has subverted my expectations, and I'm likely not going to be thrilled. So category exemplars and positioning a product are exceptionally, exceptionally important. Let's keep going. Post-purchase evaluation. So with post-purchase evaluation, you might be thinking about how the game is, how the experience is. So priming. Priming is when we tell somebody an idea or something, and we get them started on an idea or on a thought. And so there may be priming that is at stake here. Are we primed to purchase consoles based on the advertisements that we watch? Are there certain heuristics or cues that we consume when we're watching advertisements? Yes, the answer is yes. And so we're told not only what to buy, but how to play it, how to use it, and our own expectations of what it may be like. We also have ethnocentrism that goes on in post-purchase evaluation. This is also related to country of origin as well and price. These elements may impact how we purchase certain video game consoles. The last few video game console generations have seen a vastly cheaper Nintendo console compared to Xbox or PlayStation equivalents. So again, when we make these purchases, we're still thinking about these purchases, and it's based on our own ethnicity, and country of origin. If it's made in Japan, we may have certain perceptions of the Japanese product in Japan versus playing it in the United States. Those perceptions may vary. Let's keep going. Cultural influences on consumer decision making. Culture colors our perception of how we define culture in the United States, how the video game industry is indicative of the culture in the United States. We have cosplay. Cosplay is a different kind of video game perception in which people will dress up and they will react to and respond to video game intellectual property. They will engage it, they will adorn it, and they will visit theaters and visit conferences. I've been to E3 out in Los Angeles. I've been to PAX East in Boston. Those are the two biggest video game industry conferences in the world in the United States. And so at E3, yes, I saw people dress up like this woman. At PAX East, I saw in Boston, I saw women and men similarly dressed as well in other outrageous and incredible costumes. And it's part of this notion that video games are so interactive and so immersive, they engage our own self-awareness and own self-concept to a degree in which we wish to replicate those experiences in reality. Let's keep going. So what do Americans value in advertisements? Advertisements are also key to our perceptions because they educate and inform us about new video games and new video game consoles. In the United States, differently than Asian countries, we value individualism. In Asian countries, there's a sense of community. There's a sense of doing everything for the greater good. Here in the United States, we're interested in ourselves a bit more. We're interested in the ability to accomplish tasks or goal, being proactive, being steadfast, being aggressive, getting the job done. How does this relate to video games? Well, if we look at a lot of American video game advertisements, it's conquering. It's about conquering. It's about defeating your opponent. It's about being able to accomplish things quickly. And it's about you doing it. The camera being focused on one video game player or two video game players going at it, but also capturing their emotions to say one beat the other. But both are masters of their domain. Both are in charge of their own destiny by playing these video games. Quite a different philosophy, the way to live our lives. But because we live this way in the United States, our advertisements are geared toward these conversations and these dialogues. Let's keep going. Reality engineering and product. We also have product placement in video games, ladies and gentlemen. Reality engineering may use elements of pop culture and recreate them as part of our own reality. So, to incorporate further immersion and to make things feel a bit more real, yes, in fact, we rely on product placement. One, product placement helps video game publishers earn more money, and two, it creates a sense of reality. It creates a further sense of immersion. It creates a further sense that a video game player is implicated and directly involved in the action. Let's keep going. Advergaming. Now, some of you may be familiar with advergaming. Advergaming is what it sounds like. This type of gaming allows consumers to interact with advertisements. I implore all of you to Google Coors Light Refreshment. Refreshment, yes. And so, needless to say, I am a scholar in my early 30s, and unfortunately, this video game is absolutely indicative of the kind of experiences I had growing up as a youth and having video games look a bit more pixelated. And so this is absolutely a 90s type video game. It has the vibe, it has the music. Again, Google it, you'll find it, it's on YouTube. You'll see very quickly that this may be a more effective way of advertising, because the video game itself, and I've beaten it, not that I'm necessarily proud of that, took me about a half hour. When was the last time you listened to an advertisement for a half hour? You didn't. One, you're playing the video game, so your metabolic processes are working, which means they're working toward hunger and thirst and rest and other things that we need after a task has been completed. Second, we're seeing Coors Light beer all over the place in the video game. Third, it's nostalgic. I know that they're targeting me because I am 32, and 25 years ago, back in the 90s, I was 7 and playing games like this. It reminds me of Streets of Rage, it reminds me of Mega Man, it reminds me of a lot of different video gameplay elements. And so it impacts consumer decision making because it's hitting on nodes that resonate with me. It's hitting on things that really are meaningful to me and impactful to me and really get me thinking about where I was at a certain point and where I am now. Nostalgia has also been found to comfort people, to serve as a source of refreshment, not to play on words here, but anything nostalgic makes us feel better when ultimately we feel re-energized, refreshed, and engaged and ready to kind of come back to reality. And so advergaming can be very clever in doing this. It also imposes a particular brand personality around the brand itself. Let's keep going. Myths. Myths are another kind of element that are involved in perception. Stories that are indicative of cultural ideals. We know about King Kong and saving the princess, and we know about King Arthur and saving, Guinevere and being part of the Knights of the Round Table, and all of this mythology that we've grown up with. Damsel in distress. These are tropes that have been used regularly in video games. We see it in Super Mario, we see it in Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy VII. Why do we replay these stories? Why do we gravitate toward them? Well, even though we know Bowser is going to kidnap Princess Peach again, we know that getting to the end is going to be different. So we don't really watch movies or TV shows or play video games to see what will happen. We're more curious to see how it will happen. Yes, chances are the hero will get his princess. The prince will get his princess. The king will get his queen. The man will get his love interest. Yes, time and time again, more often than not, we know they will wind up together. So we're not really worried about the end. We're worried more about how do we get there? How is it different this time? This is why we find ourselves playing the same game, playing the same movie, playing the same TV show. TV shows and movies and video games, they have very similar storylines, but the way that they're executed is different. Let's keep going. Rituals. Our perceptions are based around rituals. We see this from the mythology that we were talking about earlier here. Symbolic behaviors that are repeated consistently. When I think about sports video games, I think of community. I think of camaraderie with others. I think of purpose. I think of group affiliation. This is clear in sports video games, particularly Madden football. And so I am really invested in sports video games myself. I love Madden. I love NBA 2K. Unfortunately, I don't get to play them like I wish I could, but life's busy. But there are major and massive rituals behind these video games, particularly Madden football. It's Madden season. They don't even say it's the NFL season. It's Madden season. It's time to decimate your friends, your enemies, your rivals, your frenemies, whoever you may be facing against in a hotly contested game between the Dallas Cowboys and New York Giants, or between the Green Bay Packers and Chicago Bears. So as you can see here, with rituals and with myths, there's kind of a lot going on. We have gestalts surrounding our previous conceptions about what we've been exposed to. We know about the damsel in distress. We also know what the expectations are. Myths and rituals are repetitive, but it also helps with gameplay. I know as the hero, I have to save the princess. Fine, that's easy. I probably don't need much more information than that. So it's kind of easier for a lot of video game developers, movie studio executives, directors, TV writers to keep doing the same kinds of stories. They're just kind of executed differently. And so the next time we see sequels and franchises and spin-offs, think to yourself why people are going to see this. Yes, the Transformers will ultimately win. Yes, Jurassic Park will kind of be saved, or some of the dinosaurs will be saved, or whatever it may be. Yes, Jack Sparrow will win the day in Pirates of the Caribbean. We think about all of these franchises that are involved in entertainment. And even in video gameplay, Mario will save Princess Peach. We know this. We know this when we turn on the video game. But what we don't know is what the experience will be like, what the journey will be like. And that ultimately is what impacts our perceptions. Our perceptions have to be engaged with something new. And even though sometimes we say to ourselves, this stuff is kind of old, or it's been done before, or we're saving a princess again, the truth is that the way that the game, movie, or TV show is executed is ultimately what impacts our perceptions and keeps us engaged. Well, that's all the time we have on Late Night Learning. As always, keep laughing and keep learning.